created using Powtoon.
This is a multi-tenant SaaS application which is used to serve a number of tenants. For our application, we have used MongoDB as the database and have our database in the Mongo Labs. We have built our application using Node.js and Express. We have deployed it to the AWS, as you can see here, and also hosted it on the GitHub. For our front-end display, we have used a number of tools such as HTML, CSS3, and jQuery. We have also implemented different functionalities for the three models, that is Kanban, Scrum, and Waterfall, as you'll be seeing here, and have displayed the status in a graphical view. So I'll now go over to explain the database design of our project. So this is the overall entities we have used in our project. So tenant is having an ID which is auto-generated, a name, email, and password and preference, which are all mandatory to give. So the preference will be one of the three, that is Kanban, Scrum, or Waterfall. He has to select at the time of sign up. So if the tenant selects the preference such as Kanban, then the Kanban will have details such as card ID, card name, which will be related to a user ID, username, and the card can be placed in any of the queues according to its completion, such as planned, in progress, and completed. If the tenant is a Scrum tenant, then you will have a sprint ID, a start date, end date, and story ID. A number of stories can be related to a sprint, so story can be identified by story ID, story name, description, estimated hours, remaining hours, and resource name. So if it is a waterfall tenant, then it will have task ID, task name, start date, duration, resource, risk name, and hours completed. So this is the overall design of a database. And now I will just go over and show you the application, how it. So first we need to register a new user, and we say Rohan. So okay, Rohan at gmail.com, and the password is, and he selects a preference such as waterfall and goes to register. So he goes to the login screen, and you have this, and then a password and sign in. You go to the waterfall page. Okay, so this is the whole application as it runs.
Hi, I'm Purvi. I am going to explain how the waterfall works. So first, I log in from an account which has waterfall as a preference. So every time a user logs in, the data is fetched using onload function by making an AJAX call. So right now we have two tasks, and we can create a task, view graph, and edit a task. So start from adding a task. Here we can see that we have to give values for all these fields, and risk name is an optional field, others are mandatory. So let's create a task. So when I click on submit button, a new task has been shown on the front end, and we can see that in our database the values have been updated. So we can see that I added a task description called as requirement gathering. Now we can edit any of these tasks. Let's edit this one. Whenever I click on edit button, a pop-up is displayed. So let's change values. Make the duration is 10 and the hours completed is 6. So the values has been changed here. Now again have a look at database. the duration and the hours completed has been changed here. So we have one more API called get status. So we used HiCharts to generate the graphs. We use status value from an API which include the percentage of tasks completed, and the percentage of tasks completed has been calculated on the basis of the task duration and the number of hours completed. So when we click on view graph, we can see that there is a bar chart which tells us about the remaining hours in percentage. So as we have three tasks, task 1 remaining hours in percentage is 33.3, and likewise for the task 2 and task 3. So this is all about waterfall. Thank you.
My name is Dhanvantari. I'll be explaining how tenant with Kanban preference works. Here is my tenant user ID who has selected Kanban as its preference while signing up. I'll sign up for this. Every time this user signs in, its preference is observed from database and then kanban.html page is loaded. When the page is called on the browser, an AJAX call is made to get info, which is a get call. This API call will fetch all the existing information of the user, like all cards it has in the different queues it had. So right now we have 3 queues: planned, in progress and completed. As you can see, this user has already added 3 cards in his account. So we can also see the same cards in MongoDB collection in cards array. As you can see, the user has 3 cards here in the card array. Now he can add one more card using add card API. Add card API will take first name, last name and card name from the user. Initially the card is added into the plan queue. So let's enter value for this. So now the card is added into the plan queue. In the backend, it fetches all these values from the request and assigns these values and creates an entry inside the card array. So let's check our backend. I'll run the find command again. And we'll go to our user here, which is kanban18@gmail.com. So you can see one more card is added, perform testing, in the card array. Now, suppose the user has finished working on this card and he wants to move it to a completed queue. So then he just has to click on edit card. As you can see, it will create a pop-up and will tell user what values he has to edit in this card. So now I'll just move it from in progress queue to completed queue. So when I hit submit button, it will call an update card API, which is a post call to the database. Internally, it will call a MongoDB update set query to update the queue to its new value. You can now see a queue and entry for this card is completed and not in progress. Even in our database, you can check it. So you can see we have 2 entries for in progress for completed. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Astha and I will be talking about the rest of Kanban following my teammate Dhanvantari, and after that I'll be talking about Scrum. I'll quickly log in with the same user as she did, Kanban 18. Once I sign in, I can see the tasks that she created. So she has 2 tasks in plan state, 2 in progress and 1 completed. To generate the graph, we use something called HiCharts, and Once we make an AJAX call to the REST API, the REST API calculates the percent completion of each type of task and returns it. So right now it will tell us, as you can see, in a form of a pie chart, that 40% of this Kanban is in progress and 40 in planned and 20 in completed. So this is about the chart implementation of a Kanban. Now I will be talking about Scrum. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new Scrum user. In Scrum, there are two scenarios: when the user logs in for the first time and when the user logs in as a returning user. So I'll create a Scrum user with who is a new user for now, and I will select Scrum as preference. So this user is now registered, and we will log in to the same user. As you can see, since the user is logging in for the first time, the application doesn't know what the sprint start date and the sprint end date is, and also no stories are created yet. So for first time users, it will ask for these details. So we can go ahead and select this. Here this is implemented using an API which checks whether the user is a first time user and then asks for these credentials, these values. If the user is returning, then this pop-up will not be enabled. So when I say submit, you can see that the story is created, and also the start date and the end date of this story will be displayed. Now I will log off and log back on as the same user. So I will log back on as Scrum user 18. Now that second time login, you can see that only one single story is displayed and the pop-up is not displayed right now. So that is about Scrum onload. There are two functions and I have explained both.
Hello everybody, my name is Sindhu. I'm going to run you through a demo about how a user who has already selected Scrum as a preference and has a login inside the multi-tenant system can do more operations like adding new stories, updating the stories and viewing the status of the story, which is the burn down. So let me log in with my credentials into the system and I can see my home page. I've already created two stories for this particular user. Now let me add a new story. I will assign this to myself and estimate the hours to be 12, and the remaining hours will also be 12 when I initially create the story. And you can see that the story has been created in my dashboard. I can also edit the story. If I have done 6 hours of work, I can update the remaining hours to be 6, and you can see that it is updated here. Now when I check in the database for which I'm using RoboMongo for my login, you can see that I have created 3 stories. The first story was created as Learn Node, the second is HTML, and the third is Angular, and the remaining hours, estimated hours, and the other data has been updated in the database. We have now finished operations to add a story, edit a story by changing the number of remaining hours. Now we can view the status of the current sprint through a burn down chart that we have drawn through the view graph here. Now this has plotted a expected versus an actual graph. As you can see, this is the expected burn down and this is the actual burn down of this current sprint. This is all we have for a multi-tenant system by our team. Thank you for watching.